Autonomous Council of Karbi Anglong, the Center for Karbi Studies, and the Assam University for wisdom and expertise and experience in one place around this beautiful concept called the sixth schedule of the Indian Constitution. Thank you, the chairman, Sri Surya Wangchuck, and Professor Mahinder P. Lama, Professor Samir Kumar Das, Professor Sivasis Biswa, and Professor Wuli Dhanraju, who has been taking great care of all of us here. I want to thank you all, and I want to also introduce my team that we have come from Ladakh to learn from your experiences here, so that they can connect to you later during the day and tomorrow. I would like to acknowledge the presence of Sri Tsering Dorje ji. If you can stand up. Sri Tsering Dorje ji is the current co-chairperson of the apex body of Leh, which is heading the movement in Leh for the 4-point agendas, which includes 6th schedule for Ladakh as a very important point. And then he was also the chairman of a autonomous council that we have in Ladakh, the Leh Autonomous Hill Development Council, and he was also a cabinet minister in the Jammu and Kashmir government. So it would be very good for him and you all to interact later. I also have with me Jigmet Paljorle. He's a youth leader from Ladakh, and he's the coordinator for the apex body, has been leading various student organizations. And we have with us Mustafa Haji Saab. He's a lawyer and advisor for the apex body of Ladakh, and comes from Kargil, therefore brings the experience of Kargil region of Ladakh, which has another autonomous hill council, hill development council we call it. It's not under 6th schedule. So just to introduce our team from Ladakh for you all. Well, thank you once again for all the warmth and welcome and love and affection that you have all showered upon us, and we look forward to have more interactions between Northeast and the region of Ladakh. I will today share with you a little bit about my understanding and my take on the relevance of provisions like 6th schedule in our constitution to the 21st century. For those of you who have this provision already, its refreshed relevance to the 21st century. And for those of us who are into peaceful movements to attain this kind of safeguards, our experience on relevance of ancient or not so new approaches towards people's movements that were shown by father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, that we have been adopting in Ladakh. So I'll share a few experiences about that. But as for 6th schedule itself, I have always looked at it as the generosity of the Republic of India and its constitution in not just accepting or tolerating unity in diversity, anekta mein ekta as we call it, but actually actively encouraging and strengthening such diversities. So to adopt these provisions in the new India that emerged were a great example for the whole world that India cares and strengthens its ethnicities in different parts of the nation, and therefore helps them not only survive but thrive. So I feel very few countries in the world have such progressive constitutions, barring few like Australia, New Zealand, Canada. Not many countries have such enlightened provisions in their constitutions. In fact, many countries want to end such diversity and trample on such ethnicities and their ancient cultures and the diversity that they bring. Our own neighbors, Pakistan, had federally administered tribal areas, FATA they are called, but they come under the Frontier Crimes Regulation legal framework. So it's seen as crime regulation rather than something to thrive and flower in the diversity of the nation. Our neighbors again, Bangladesh, has something better, but I think very much taken from the example that India set. Though late, after a lot of disputes and discords, the Chittagong Hill Tract got their CTA or Chittagong Hill Tract Accord in 1997, which are almost identical to what the 6 scheduled autonomous councils have. They have a concept of autonomous councils and the protection it will give to their land, forests and rights of the indigenous people. So although lots of disputes still remain there because not much of the accord has been fulfilled, but India stands out as a lighthouse that way for its diverse ethnicities with its 6th schedule provision. Now its relevance to the world. I, as an environmentalist, got connected with the movement for demand of 6th schedule in Ladakh, not as much from the political perspective, which is what it is in a big way, to give rights to the indigenous people, or even cultural perspective, which is to keep the diversity in traditional customs and ways of life, which are all very beautiful. But more than that, I have connected to it as a great solution for ecologically sensitive zones of India, the Himalayas, and perhaps the world. I have always thought and said, you can look up my social media posts as we did our Padayatra recently. All along the way I was talking about how such provisions of our constitution that helps the indigenous tribal communities to make decisions about their own region, about their own affairs, is the only way you can protect the fragile ecologies in these very sensitive zones like Hindu Kush, Himalayas and Northeast. These are very fragile ecologies, and such provisions that strengthens the local people, local indigenous people in this case, can be a great help in maintaining these ecologies. Now, I was thinking as I was walking and making these posts about its importance so that people all over the nation and the world can understand the importance of such a provision that helps the indigenous people living in the Himalayas, and they in turn help protect the ecology that feeds the whole nation. You know, our water depends on Hindu Kush Himalayas. 2 billion people of the world, most of them in the northern part of India and southern China and Tibet, depend on these mountains and its glaciers and its fragile ecology for their water. That is 1/4 of the population of the world. And to keep it, the best stewards will be the local indigenous peoples who have kept it alive for thousands of years and who are so invested, as they will be here for many centuries or millennia. So they have a direct stake in keeping the region thriving as compared to people who cannot connect to the local ecology here, who are sent on assignments of 2 to 3 years, like bureaucrats who come and manage, for example, Ladakh's affairs right now. There are no democratic fora in Ladakh, no assembly, councils, yes, but we have no lawmaking powers because it's not in 6th schedule. So therefore, it's all run by bureaucrats on 2 to 3 years assignments. With all goodwill for them, it's very difficult for them because best of them will make mistakes in a place that they don't understand, in a culture that they don't understand, and in such a sensitive eco-zone, they'll make mistakes. And worst of them may enter into deals that the local people will suffer the consequences for many generations. Similarly, like bureaucrats, you may have corporates that enter. They may be for a longer period than 3 years, but that's a bigger problem because they will look at nothing but maximizing their profits. It's not, as I heard in the morning, that we use resources, you cannot use our resources. We use resources like birds on a tree. The tree doesn't die. Indigenous people, the way they use resources. But when a mechanized, organized, large multinational corporate comes, they suck the mountains of all it has for 10 to 15 years and then they throw it. The same use and throw culture that is invading our country coming from the west. So with this approach to Himalayas, we can't be arguing who is doing what because all of us are going to die. Our civilization is going to die when all the glaciers are melted. There won't be anything that you will see except in monsoon. And what you will see in monsoon will not be water, it will be floods. That will further kill you if you are not already dead with the drought of the springtime. So that's what will become if we meddle too much with the Himalayan ecology and the cultures and the rights of the people who have taken stewardship of these Himalayas for millennia and hopefully for millennia to come. So that's how I have always connected to the 6th schedule. Many people ask me, You are talking about climate change, climate path, ecology and environment. What does it have to do with 6th schedule? I'm sure our forefathers, when they instituted this provision in the Constitution of India, perhaps didn't think about ecology or climate change. They thought of the rights and the cultures. They were very generous for the times. Because they didn't have the problems that we have today, they didn't think of. But if you look at today, if you look at 2024 in the 21st century, what we used to back then call development, modernization, progress, is under a huge question mark, if not downright rejection. It's facing a kind of midlife crisis because what the West thought that they have found the way is actually ending the whole planet where we are supposed to live. Not exactly the planet will go on, but our life on the planet. Today, the air is not worthy of breathing, the water we have is not worthy for our children to drink, this land you couldn't hardly touch in urban areas, industrial areas, and the imminent crisis that climate change will usher us in is just unthinkable. What all will happen from here now as we pay the price of what we call development and progress in the past centuries. So therefore, today it's a very different world, and yet what our forefathers did 75 years ago, as Karbi Anglong celebrates, and I wanted to congratulate you all for that. What they did back then is a great solution to what we are facing today. While I was thinking of this and was expressing through my writings and speeches, I felt very happy 2 weeks ago to see that the world has acknowledged the same in a huge way, parallelly, nothing that I have contributed to them. Just to quote you here, 2 weeks ago, a very important COP summit ended. This is COP 16, a little different from the COP 29 that will happen. UN Conference of Parties meeting in Colombia on biodiversity. And the beautiful thing that I saw and felt happy and would like to share with you today, the main outcomes, the resolutions of that was what they called a benchmark for the world. The UN spokesperson says, this is an unprecedented occasion in history of multilateral environmental agreements. Okay? Spokesperson says. Now what is it? I'll just say. Agreement was reached after lengthy debates and discussions at the close of COP 16, giving indigenous peoples, that is tribal peoples as we call it in India, their communities recognition as the protagonists of biodiversity and conservation, while also deciding to create a subsidiary body for them under the Article 8J of the Convention. So now the entire world is connecting safeguarding and protecting indigenous people to environment and climate change. Through this we can see, and yes, we should all celebrate this with a great applause for the world leaders who went and connected the two when I was being questioned, how do you connect 6th schedule with environment and climate change? So now you can take it as a common knowledge that we can start from and take advantage of this approach and argument when we have talks on further strengthening rather than diluting such provisions. For me, it's not just some groups in Northeast and Ladakh, because I come from there, that should get such decision-making autonomy for their own environment. I feel the entire world will take care of the planet only if each region has some autonomy, has some say in how their region and their ecology is managed. Even not just in Ladakh or Northeast, but I feel all the states should have more autonomy in keeping who they are, what they are, being diverse and distinct, and yet coming together to build a beautiful nation. Anekta mein ekta. So I always say, लद्दाख की लद्दाखियत के लिए तो हम 6 शेड्यूल बोल रहे हैं, मगर मैं तो चाहूंगा कि पंजाब की पंजाबियत रहे, बंगाल की बंगालियत रहे, कश्मीर की कश्मीरियत रहे, और फिर हिंदुस्तान एक खूबसूरत बगीचा बन के दुनिया के आगे चले। और ये मैं क्यों कह रहा हूं? जब हम छोटे छोटे बेनाम इकाई बन जाते हैं जिसमें खुद का कोई पहचान नहीं रह जाता है, तो हमारे अंदर की ऊर्जा, ताकत भी खत्म हो जाती है। हम उस शऊर से, उस जोश से हिस्सा नहीं लेते हैं हर चीज में, जैसा कि तब होता है जब हम अपने आप को अपना सकें। ओनरशिप ऑफ आवरसेल्व्स। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, how can India be great? I'm amazed that we are not able to realize the full potential of each region, each state of our nation. Do you know, Uttar Pradesh is as big as United States of America. If you are talking about, material development also, I'm not so much for that, but how we can be great nation with each region, each part, given its due respect and decision making. In India, West Bengal is bigger than Germany. Maharashtra is bigger than Japan. Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir is bigger than Israel. Punjab bigger than Australia. So you can imagine, even in the conventional sense, what a nation with so many nations equivalent can do, if they are made to feel the tigers they are, rather than part of a mix where they don't know who they are, where they're going. तो इसलिए मैं ये सोचता हूँ कि ऐसी ऑटोनॉमी कुछ हद तक, अच्छे हद तक हर जगह मिले, और खासकर हिमालय में तो ये एक लग्जरी नहीं है, ये नेसेसिटी है, और सिर्फ हिमालय में रहने वाले लोगों के लिए नहीं, बल्कि पूरे उपमहाद्वीप में पानी का स्रोत ही यही है। तो ये मैं आप लोगों के सामने एक बात रखना चाहता था। The second thing I wanted to share briefly, because we don't have so much time, is Ladakh. I thought you might be curious or interested in us as we are in you. So Ladakh was once an independent kingdom in the Himalayas under a powerful king. Then in 1840s it lost its independence to the Dogra Maharajas. Then for roughly 100 years it remained as a annexed vassal state of the Dogras. And then when India became independent in 47, Ladakh together with Jammu and Kashmir became a part of India. And Ladakh always looked up to India as a source of culture, religion, Buddha's birthplace, but they didn't want to be with Jammu and Kashmir, who had forcefully annexed them 100 years back. So they appealed to the center to take Ladakh in its fold directly rather than be left as a small district, remote district of a remote state, which is what a kingdom had become by now. And this struggle continued every now and then for the last 75 years. But in roughly last 35 years, it gained momentum, and 30 years ago, next year it will be 30 years of Ladakh Autonomous Hill Council. So while Ladakh was seeking the status of a union territory, because the population was too small to be a full state, is what our ancestors perhaps thought. So they always sought union territory. And in 1995, that's next year, it's 30 years, Hill Council of Leh was formed, and some 8 years later, Hill Council, Autonomous Hill Development Council of Kargil was formed, because we were told that formation UT will be not possible till there is Article 370 in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. And I think they also, for the same reason, couldn't take Ladakh's hill councils under the 6th schedule because of Article 370, because it had to be passed in the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly, and Ladakh never had a very good relation with Jammu and Kashmir, who they wanted to free themselves. Free Ladakh from Kashmir was a movement then. So of course this was not possible. Therefore, it was given Ladakh Autonomous Council Leh and Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council, it should be, I beg your pardon, of Kargil. So two of those as a via media, as a middle path. Despite that, leaders of Ladakh took that at the time because very little was possible under the circumstances with J&K. Even this happened during the governor's rule. Otherwise, this could also not have happened if Kashmir elected assembly was in power. So that's how this was done. And meanwhile, leaders continued their demand for UT status with not much result. Then suddenly in 2019, when Article 370 was removed, at the same time the government created the Union Territory of Ladakh also, along with Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. So Ladakh never had any serious opinions about Article 370, except that this is what was stopping them from getting their identity as an entity in themselves, Ladakh itself, though as a union territory was being stopped by this. So therefore, when this happened, they celebrated. They were very grateful to the center for creating this union territory. It was taken as a no-brainer, as a granted thing, that this union territory will have two things. One, Ladakh used to discuss even before that about the safeguards to the unique culture, environment, land, etc. that was earlier provided by the Article 370. And the answer in all such conferences there was the 6th schedule of the Indian Constitution. Because 95% or more of the population in Ladakh is scheduled tribes. Therefore, it was taken as a no-brainer that of course we will get this protection. Secondly, it was always demanded and expected that the union territory will be with a legislative assembly. So they were very sad and disappointed to learn that it's a union territory without assembly or legislative assembly, which means there is no forum for democratic participation. Although Ladakh used to elect and send 4 MLAs to the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly. So in a way they were disenfranchised on that account. For the 6th schedule part, it was always, as I said, expected that this provision will be extended to Ladakh, and not just expected, it was actually offered by the government or the ruling party in various public meetings after the announcement of duty, where they said you will be taken under fold of 6th schedule. There are minutes of the Home Ministry, Ministry of ST, SC, Law Ministry, etc. And twice in the 2019 parliamentary elections and the even more prestigious or equally prestigious Hill Council elections of 2020, where the grant of 6th schedule for Ladakh comes as the top agenda of the manifesto, as 3rd point in parliament and the top most point in Hill Council. So people were very assured and therefore thought that what they wanted would be fulfilled, but somehow it's difficult for people to understand why. With the passage of time, in 1 year to 2 years, there was a silence, a deafening silence about the fulfilling of this 6th schedule promise. And therefore, this movement for fulfillment of that promise began in Ladakh. And in that there were various meetings with the Ministry of Home Affairs, some 10 meetings, but most of the time there was a lot of beating around the bush, dilly-dallying, and not much came out of it. So finally we had to launch this movement that you may have heard about, where I also joined the movement. And I told you my first connect with the 6th schedule movement was for environmental reasons, because it's a great solution for 21st century and could be an example for other places also. And in this movement also we tried to take a very peaceful approach as shown by Mahatma Gandhi, not only because it perhaps is the best way, but also, you know, we are such a small community of some 3 lakh people, both Leh and Kargil put together. Of course, it makes sense in every way that we, you know, make the other side realize their own part in making those promises and therefore fulfilling them, because it was a strong case where they had assured us and promised us. So therefore, personally, I was very interested in just like seeing the relevance of such constitutional provisions to 21st century, like 6th schedule. Similarly, I was interested in seeing the relevance of Mahatma Gandhi's ways to movements in the 21st century. And because this was the only path that a community of 3 lakh people could adopt. Not that if we were a huge, large community, we would have taken up arms. I feel that peaceful approach is the most powerful approach. Even if you can do other things, they do not succeed as well as Gandhi's methods succeed. So therefore, I would like to share, especially in the Northeast, where a lot of armed struggles have been seen, Ladakh's experience of, very peaceful satyagraha, as Gandhi showed, satyagraha, which is based on satya, truth, nothing but truth, that Ladakh deserves. It was promised, these are the conditions, and it will only do the nation good. The satya about it, and walking the path of satya ourselves. If we had anything but truth and satya, it would have been impossible for us to, be doing this movement. As you know, how a powerful government can, arm twist. If you have anything that could be used, if you are not on the path of satya or truth, then you can see how many of the leaders and movements die because they have something that is a blemish on their own part. So satya and ahimsa, non-violence, this was Gandhi's satyagraha. And tapasya. Tapasya is when you inflict pain, but only on yourself, not on anybody else with a gun or stones or a lathi or whatever. When you inflict pain on yourself, these are the 3 foundations of satyagraha. So we went on that path, and therefore we tried to appeal to the conscience of the government, of the parties that were involved, about how they must fulfill their promises. And for that, as a tapasya, we took upon ourselves to go on anchan, deprive ourselves of food for progressively 1 week, and then roughly 2 weeks, and then roughly 3 weeks, and lastly 4 weeks, which was cut short to 16 days recently. So anchan and satyagraha, both was Mahatma Gandhi's path that he showed, and he went on the longest anchan of 21 days, and therefore we said we'll do exactly that, and that's why the one before the last one was 21 days anchan. It was also the 3rd week as we progress. The idea is keep progressing with every time 1 week more till you die. It's not unto death in one anchan, you can't achieve much. But if you can't, then you stop at 1 week, next time 2 weeks, next time 3 weeks, till you die. That's a longer and more powerful way that I thought we could adopt, because between each of them we have time to negotiate and appeal to their conscience further. So this was Ladakh's way of satyagraha. And then too many anchans also can be not so appealing. So last we did was, before this anchan, was a march, a padyatra. And again, like Mahatma Gandhi did his Dandi march under civil disobedience from Ahmedabad to Dandi, Namak Satyagraha. Similarly, that was of 15 days. We did from Leh to New Delhi, roughly 1,000 kilometers over a month. Roughly 150 people walked all the way to Delhi. And during that, thanks to social media now, we could communicate, educate sensitize the people of the nation. We didn't make it too international because we wanted it to be internal affair of India. We didn't make any conscious steps to internationalize it, but more to localize it actually, to make Ladakhi people first of all realize that we have a responsibility to keep Ladakh clean, green and healthy. Because we also talk not just about, tribal, non-tribal, insider, outsider. One of the things I talk when I connect to Ladakhi people through my podcast is Ladakh ko Ladakhiyon se bhi bachana hai. That's very important because it's not just somebody else, some corporate, some bureaucrat that will do damage. Your own people can do as much damage if you do not remain yourselves. If you just see for short-term gains and so on, then that would happen. Now that, I don't know how much happens here, but I also think that that could happen because we are trained to become not ourselves. Through an education system that is alien, we are in a way trained to become urban and therefore may hold not the ideologies or way of thinking as our ancestors had. So we ourselves, with the right names, that Karbi people have or Dimasa people have as a surname, could even become an enemy of our ancient culture, land, ecology and so on. So please be aware that we have a responsibility to protect ourselves also and not just government or corporates. So that's what we try to do, starting with Ladakh and Ladakhis, that Ladakh has to be protected from Ladakhis also. Along the way, we throughout the Himalayas, we started connecting to people in Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Chandigarh, Punjab, Haryana, and so on, with messages, thanks to social media, as I said, about why it is important for them also, and the government, why it is important for them. So appealing to the conscience of the other side. That was Gandhi's formula, the conscience through truth and non-violence and tapasya. And let me tell you how successful it was. We were going to negotiate or talk to from Leh to Delhi, walking for a month with the government. And all along the way, people from all political parties connected so well, whether they were from opposition or ruling party. So many leaders of Bharatiya Janata Party could strike a chord with what we were saying. So they joined, they treated us along the way. And while in Delhi, people from Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh and Bharatiya Janata Party would bring us things to support us, some openly, some covertly. They would send things and send messages. We can't come out in open, but our hearts are with you. Senior leaders would come. Half of our party is in support of you. This could not have happened if we had adopted any other path than the path we adopted. So this is the strength of that path that Gandhi showed and the relevance to 21st century that we saw. Otherwise, 3 lakh people, trying to assert something in front of a most powerful government in the world, I would say, would not have been possible if it was not the support of the whole nation. This was along the way. Then all over the nation, people started supporting and discussing and debating environmental issues, which was our educational agenda also, to sensitize people. All of that happened and a lot of support came, and the government also agreed to resume the discussions with Ladakhi leaders and wish us the best. in the talks that will happen on 3rd December when our leaders will enter into discussion. So I just wanted to say that Mahatma Gandhi's ways are very relevant for small communities or large communities, even in 21st century. And the issue of safeguards, like under the provisions of 6th schedule, are becoming even more relevant than they were in the, because it is there, taken for granted, like fish do to water. They don't value it till they're out of the water. Like we do to our air, perhaps we'll do it more when we'll suffocate in the industrial pollution that we see in Delhi and other industrial cities. So please learn to value what you have and thank our forefathers who kept such provisions in the Constitution. And if you want to make it better, even more beautiful, then choose the path that Mahatma Gandhi showed. Thank you very much.